This video is going to be a short guide on how to make a simple lava base. So to start off, I'll be using Citadel's Technical Armageddon Dust. I just slapped this directly onto the base till I was happy with the consistency. I've already molded some green stuff in the middle of the base as a guide where I want to glue the miniature in the end. I added a couple of rocks to the base, which I then removed since I remembered that I needed some space for the lava to pool in later on. In this case, it's going to be these 3 flat spaces. Once dried, I mixed some normal PVA glue with water and added this to the flat spaces. This will act as a primer for the crackle paint later on. Then it's onto the actual crackle effect. For this, I use Citadel's Technical Mordant Earth. I slap this onto the spaces where I want the lava to be, which is still the same 3 spots, here, here, and here. I left that to dry for more than an hour to be sure the crackling process has finished. And once it did, I mixed some PVA glue with some more water, making sure the mixture is more fluid since the goal here is to get it in between and underneath the cracks. I also cover the green stuff with tape so that once finished the miniature has a solid surface to stick on, instead of it being glued to a thin layer of paint. The base has to be primed white since I'll be starting off with lighter colors, so for the lava itself I'll be using red and yellow paint. The yellow goes in between the cracks where I think the lava would burn the hottest, and once I laid that on, I mixed some red and yellow to make orange, and add this around the yellow, kind of like a gradient where the lava cools off a bit. And usually I finish with red around the orange, but I noticed that the space was getting sparse, so I just decided to stipple it on here and there. And once that's done, the rest of the ground gets painted black, so anything that's currently white on the base needs to be covered. I also need to fix the rock part of the miniature, so I started with grey at first, but since I painted the ground of the base black, I decided it'd be much smarter to match this to the miniature. Now this step is important. I give the crackle themselves a couple of coats of black, being careful not to get the paint in the crevices. The point is to leave the reds and yellows underneath the cracks alone, while the cracks themselves on top get painted black. And you should be left with something like this. To pull everything together, I dry brush the surrounding area of the lava spots black to blend them together. I noticed how the yellow seemed a bit too bright at this point, so I decided to dim it down with some red paint, which I diluted to a wash consistency. Once I was happy with this, I move on to dry brushing the base. For this I use dark and light greys. I start off with a dark grey to give the entire base a once over. The goal here is to move away from the black base and to give the entire scenery a rocky feel. Then I use light grey for the highest parts of the base, which in this case would just be the rocks, and this is meant to simulate some ash. I follow the exact same steps for the rock the miniature itself is standing on. And once that's finished, I remove the tape so the miniature can be properly glued to the surface. After supergluing the miniature to the base, all that's left is to paint the rim of the base black. In hindsight, I could have taken my time with some of the steps in between, like painting the crackles more coherently. But with what I've got, I'm still happy with the outcome. To be fair, this base didn't take so long to finish. if you didn't count the drying time for each technical paint. I think custom bases are so much fun since you still get to be creative and tell a small snippet of a story. It just adds so much more to the scene and the miniature itself, which you obviously couldn't get if you just stuck the finished piece on a plain black base. Anyway, that's about it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video.